Randall's, Jared, Bill Smith, Bryson, and Clayton. All right. No, I don't want that. I'm going to add that to our things, but not now. All right. For bond pricing, just like annuities, I'm going to actually develop a little template. Technically speaking, it's an annuity with a balloon payment, but I'm going to add a few things here and there. So I'm going to develop a template using the Seeker. So if you want to go ahead and let's call this bonds. First, let's talk about what are bonds. Anyone? I mean, you guys are not marketing or management majors. Not that there's anything wrong with that. So you're finance, accounting, and insurance majors, so I expect more from you guys. How many of you actually took the basic finance as an online 8-week class? One? Okay. I know 2 or 3 of you took it from me. But the rest hasn't. So what's a bond? Just because it's a simple question doesn't mean you shouldn't answer.
Isn't it like a loan to like a company or the government? Isn't that like a loan to a company or the government?
Not to a company or a government. I mean, if you loan money to a government, that's, you don't have a bond.
I was going to say, companies or the government will release them for you to buy so they can get more money now.
Yeah.
Use it.
We call them, issue them, okay?
Yeah.
They issue, bonds are a form of financial security, okay? Just like any financial security, it makes certain promises, and there are conditions attached to it. I mean, you don't actually see it, but it's stock. In the old days, you actually had paper certificates. Even now, if you ask for it, you can get it. So if you have 100 shares of Google, and if you ask Google, they're going to actually print you a stock certificate. You can keep it for your own purposes. Even bonds these days rarely are in printed certificate forms, but they contain conditions. Stocks say, here is how you're going to get your dividends, okay? And who makes the decision about dividends? What happens if we sell the company? Oh, it's basically an agreement. That's what bonds are, okay? In fact, the agreement that defines a given bond, it is called an indenture, and it specifies a lot of things. So bonds are securitized version of a loan, technically speaking. Typically issued by governments. It could be federal, state, local. Or corporations. And if they're issued by corporations, we call them corporate bonds. And they define a few common conditions or terms. First and foremost, every bond has a maturity date. Okay. After that date, there will be no form of any payment. And the final payment will be done rarely. Some bonds have no maturity date. They are technically called perpetuities, but we also know them as consols. They only make interest payments and no maturity. British government used this quite a bit to finance wars and expansions into colonies. For example, a lot of the expansion into India was financed by these forms of loans. And they basically said, okay, I'm going to sell you some bond, let's call it £1,000, and every year I'm going to give you £100 if the interest rate is 10%. And there is no end to it. You're going to get it as long as the government of United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, those days, now Northern Ireland, is able to make those payments, or they still exist. In many cases, there is a continuing government, they would pay. For example, Soviet Union went out of business in 1991, but Russia actually paid all of their debts. So there's always some sort of continuing government. Ottoman Empire went out of existence in 1922, but the modern Republic of Turkey, they actually paid all of their debts. I think they paid the last one in 1983, 60 years after they were out of existence. All bonds have something called face value. This is basically a denomination like $100 bill, but most bonds make their final payment as the face value. So I borrow money from the public, let's say $1,000 face value. That's typically the default denomination. So if I talk about one bond, that's typically $1,000 face value. 30 years from now, in addition to other payments that the bond may involve, I will also pay you $1,000. So bonds differ in terms of what other payments they make in the meantime. You have a coupon rate. Let's actually call it coupon frequency. This is the number of coupons or interest. I'm going to put interest payments in quotes. A bond is to make per calendar year or per 12-month periods. I picked that on purpose because per calendar year means you're gonna pay this many in 2023-24. But if the bond is issued in the meantime, that may not necessarily be the amount for each calendar year. For each 12-month period, that's how much you pay. Most bonds have semi-annual coupons. So what does that mean? If it's semi-annual, how many coupons they pay? 2, yeah. 2 coupons per 12-month period. Very rarely, especially among corporate bonds, you would see quarterly. But among corporate and government bonds, it's not that common, but it's not that rare either. You could actually see annual coupons. They pay one coupon every year. You could also see annual coupons. You guys know why it's called a coupon? I mean, you guys are too young. This is something that you may not even be able to relate, but you know why they're called coupons? Just by any chance?
Because you used to get the payments in the form of a little coupon piece of paper.
Yeah, I mean, you actually got the bond certificate. Let's say it was a 30-year bond, semi-annual. It had 60 little, just like the little tickets that you get, let's say in Chuck E. Cheese or some other entertainment area. I know you guys can relate to Chuck E. Cheese. You're not that far removed from Chuck E. Cheese yet. I am. I guess my kids were not. I'm gonna forget about those days. It's a different experience for parents to go to Chuck E. Cheese. Horrible pizza.